Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Decryption and I hope you are well. In the previous episodes of the race controller, we have fixed many of the bugs that now allows the player to start participating in the race. Everything is looking so much more slick now, but the final big thing we need to add in is the cleanup and the ability for the player to actually finish the race. Once we've done that, we can move on to UI, usages, and we are done with the series. So let's get started. The player not finishing is a bit of a funky one. By default, we set everybody's current lap to 0 because they've not started the race. So if we select the race controller, and let's try to make both player and NPC visible, so you can see player and NPC, we get in before the timer, you'll see everybody's current lap is 0, including the players. But once the race begins and the NPCs run to the first point, their current laps will become 1. But the player doesn't handle this because the player's initial trigger goes straight to here and we run into it and we never get to current lap of 1. So you'll see as we run around all the race, it will never say we've finished. But if we set the current lap manually to 1 and we hit this one, we've successfully hit current lap 2, meaning we've finished the race and we can clean up and handle everything. So it's just a little difference we have to clean up versus the players and the NPCs. An easy fix for this one, for the player at least, is to come to our race controller and we have player arrived at patrol point, which is the one we use to actually make them run around the race. But we also have player arrived at starting area. And I think this is a perfect chance for us to actually handle it for the player because all we need is that initial lap count to be boosted. The NPCs handle it by running to the first lap, which is the starting point. Their first goal is to run to this. They just run there, and that ticks it up for them. For the player, we don't need that. We could, of course, spawn a trigger right here and tell the player to run to this, but that's a bit weird. It's a super simple fix to add this. So instead of adding it and then updating the current lap like we do for the NPCs, because we need that for them to work, instead, in the start race function, inside here, we check if we're adding the player, and we add them to it. But all we need to do in here is just add the current lap and set it to 1. That's really it. And if we hit compile and save this time, you'll see if we start it, when we add the player, their current lap is number 1 straight off the bat, which is perfect, so that's what we need. And now as we run, when he gets out of my way, you see him cheating then. As we finish the race, you will see that it will mark us as finished. Perfect. And as everybody catches up, it says they are the loser because we have officially won the race. But we still need to clean everything up. So the cleanup for the NPCs doesn't actually exist because we're only spawning new things in for the player. But we've already got a function that handles all of this. On our race finish here, this is when every character goes to it and we're cleaning everything up, marking a racer as done, and then we're determining a winner, and then we print out who the loser is. When we call reset race, this is where we're going through, resetting everybody up, setting the winning character, but we can now also clean everything up. We can come into our pulled trigger points, which is all the triggers that we're pulling. We can for each loop over it, and we can basically destroy each trigger point because we don't need it anymore. And then after that, we will just, instead of removing it from the pulled trigger points, we're just going to clear it to empty it out so we've got nothing in the pool. So we'll remove the pulled triggers, which is perfect. After this, we need to loop over all of the racers, and we actually need to remove the ones which are players from it, because the player might not want to attend it again, and if they do, they'll automatically be added anyway. To handle this, what I'm going to do is drag in the current racers, and I'm going to reverse for each loop over it. And what this basically means is we can start removing things from the end of it, and because it's getting smaller, we're going down it correctly. So it's not going to break if you try to remove from it as we're doing it. So I am, of course, going to break from it, and I'm going to check for a player. If it is a player, then I'm also going to get their trigger patrol points before we remove them. I'm going to get the values, which is all of the triggers. And then, just like we did above, I'm going to for each loop over the values and destroy them. We don't need to worry about clearing it this time. And the reason we're doing this is because we spawn triggers throughout all of this. Here, we add 2 triggers, so the player has 2 trigger points now. But as they hit this one, it hides one of the triggers and puts it back in the pool. But this one here is still being live. So even though we've destroyed the secondary one we're no longer using, this one is still assigned to the player and isn't being destroyed. So we're going to destroy that one. On completed, we're also going to get the next destination and the current destination. These are the markers, and we're going to call destroy on both of these, like so. You can just use a single destroy name for both of those. And then finally, we're going to get racers, and we're simply going to remove item, and the item we want to remove is this array element here, like so. So just repeating over this a moment. Here, we're removing the unused pulled triggers. The first part of this is clearing up the players. So we'll wrap all of this in clear up players. The first part of it here simply remove in-use trigger points. This part here removes world markers. And then this part over here removes player from race, like so. So plenty of cleanup, but in theory, that should be everything cleaned up from a player's perspective now. So if we start the race with a player, you can see they are added in here, and we run over to here. We now have it counting down with the player in the race. It will spawn triggers for us and the world markers. So this is all normal because we're not resetting anything. But now, as we hit this, everything should be completely ignored. As we have to wait for the players to finish. There. So as everybody finished and the race finally concluded, everything has been cleaned up. We can look down the outliner to make sure we have definitely cleaned everything up. So map tiles, cubes, patrol points, yes. So everything is officially cleared up. Meaning in theory, we can come back and start the race with the player again. And everything should continuously, nicely reset itself. I know it's not optimal at the moment. We are going to look at that one. For some reason, that big guy's not moving. But now we can successfully run, and the race is repeatable. That is something else we have now unlocked. There's no glitches. We're not double lapping. Everything is fully done. You can see it says we're the winner because we're the first one. But there we go. So what we need to do now is we need to think how we want this to work. If the player finishes first, we absolutely need to remove their markers. 100% we do. However, if the player doesn't finish first, do we want it to immediately fail? Or do we want the player to finish only to be told you have failed? A lot of games kind of have it both ways, and I kind of think we really should build it into the system to allow both ways. So if you do only want one of the ways the player immediately fails, you lose and you're halfway around the track, you game over, it teleports, does whatever it needs, you can. If you want the player to have to finish, then it says you lose, like in most car racing games. It doesn't actually tell you you've lost until you've lost. And it also allows you to do a leaderboard if you want to track times and such. So, let's do both. In our race controller, I'm going to add a new variable called fail player immediately, and upon confirming the correct spelling of immediately, we're going to make it instance editable so we can change it in the editor. There we go. So what I'm going to do is, instead of reset race, where it's just resetting the entire race correctly as it should, I'm actually going to portion the visual aspects of it out of the race just for the player. So the part here where we're cleaning up the players, we're checking if it's a player, we're destroying the world markers and the triggers, and then removing the player from the race. I'm actually going to come and copy all of this into a new function called reset race for player, and I'm going to paste all this in. This is a little bit of a performance hit because we are technically going to be looping over the same thing twice, but it benefits the player that we won't be able to see. So all this is going to do is everything except removing them from the script, like so. All it's going to do is remove the visual aspects of that for that player. That's it. And then back in reset race, we can remove all of this except the removal and the check here. So this will be the final one, which will clear up the functionality-wise. It will remove the player from the race. However, back on the race finish here, we check if the winning character is here or not. And if the winning character is if it's valid, it means we've already determined a winner. So Back over here, we mark the racer as done. So I'm going to promote the racer detail to a local variable, racer detail, and I'll just connect it all up. And all we're using this for is determining if it's a player or not. So now that we have this, before we determine if the player's won or not, we already know that the player has finished, because we can determine that based on if they're a player or not here. So using that racer detail, I'm going to break on it and just check if it's currently a player that is just finished. If it is a player, true, then we can simply call reset race for player, like so, because they have finished. If it's false, then it means an NPC is won, finished, so we can just bypass that part and continue on, like so. Then you may or may not get some errors even with it like this, and that's mainly because in the event graph, when the player arrives at the location, for the NPCs we just call race a new patrol point, but for the players we call race a new patrol point, we then find the markers that they've hit and we respawn them and we deactivate them and do everything else we need. However, we don't actually need to do any of that if they've completed the race. So what I'm going to do is go into race a new patrol point, and I'm going to make it return whether or not the race has finished. So I'll say B race finished. And if it's false down here, nobody's hit the patrol point, so it just carries on. That's perfectly fine. However, if we get to the lap increase here and we update it and we finished the race over here, this one will also be false there, we can now actually tell it the race has been finished. And all that means is now back on the event graph, just before we do any of this for the player, which we don't need to do anymore, we can just simply add a branch here and say, only do it if the race hasn't finished. And just while I'm here, I've noticed these lines look absolutely awful, so let's just nicely tidy that bit up, like so, because it just looks so much neater. So if we try it this time, as soon as we finish the race, it should deactivate everything for the player. So we can see we can start it correctly and go. So we can run around the race, everything is working correctly. And when we finish it, you can see the markers have disappeared, but the player is still in the race, look. Which is good, because it's still technically over. Until this NPC finally arrives, and then the player is now removed when all the contestants are finished. So that's a much better way of processing it. But we added a boolean to the character to make it fail or not immediately if the player wasn't the winner. So back on our race finish here, if it's valid, it means a racer has been assigned. So what we're going to do is, in order to use our boolean, is we're going to jump into the reset race function, and the first thing it does is check if everybody's finished. If they haven't, then it just returns outright. That's fine. However, what we're going to do instead is add a branch here and say, should we fail immediately? If it's true, then we're not going to do anything. We're just going to let it go for now. But if it's false, we're going to return the no because we shouldn't fail immediately. We want the player to continue. However, I'm going to come and exchange this for each loop for a for each with break. And it's going to do the exact same thing. The only difference is, for performance, we can now stop it early. I'm just going to crudely rotate this true all the way over here, back to the break. So I'm just crudely going to connect this true to the break here. And I'm just going to double click the lines to move it around, like so. And what this is going to do is, as soon as it says the player should fail immediately because somebody's finished, it's going to immediately break out of this and go to the completed in order to clean everything up and basically tell the player, hey, game over. One minor thing we need to add to this is on the race finish, we're only resetting the race for the player if the player actually finishes it. If we're immediately failing that for the player here, we're going to come up and bypass that right here and just reset it for the player. So if we fail immediately, the player will have all his markers removed, and then it will come down, clean up the races, clean up the player, and do everything it needs. Basically say, game over. So let's give that a try now and see how it looks. This time we need to purposely fail, so this is going to be fun. So we can run, we can start the race. It will count down. 3, 2, 1. Oh, I'm going, and they're running so fast. Oh no. Wow, this one's really slow. He's nailing it, actually. Can I catch him up from this point? Let's see. So, we'll see. We've hit that, but it's still ongoing. And the reason is we've completely forgot to take fail player immediately. So we've just tested and seen that we can actually finish the race, even though we've lost, which is perfect. That is a great test example. So we'll restart the race with the player and say this race fails immediately. And then we'll let them go, go, go. They're running. And he's running, and he's gonna... Oh, he's not taking the shortcut this time, so we can just come down here to try and overtake him. And at the last moment, it just jogs past us, and... Game over. There we go. We have lost. She will continue, because that's what she's programmed to do. But then after that, she's going to continue. Interestingly, she's continuing, but for the player, the game is over. They've been removed, and that's it. We've lost the race. How cool is that, ladies and gentlemen? So just to fix the final bug, on race finish, the actor is never actually running this logic here to stop themselves from doing anything, because we are clearing the entire race if we fail immediately. So what I'm going to do is just convert this little bit here to a function called reset racer AI. And you see, Unreal's idea of this is not always fantastic. So we are just going to come back in and clean this up a little bit. So plug them both in like that. Disconnect this one. Remove the bottom one. Set the top one to a type of character, I believe. And we'll rename it as well to finish character so it all matches up. That will finish off everything in there like that. And then back on our race finish, we'll just make sure all this is lined up. And then back on our reset race, all we're going to do is just make sure that all the characters have already been told to stop. So if it's not... So as we're cleaning the races up here, we're just going to, on the end, add the finish part up for them. And we'll break on the racer struct here and just plug the character in like so. Just for a bit of extra logic, we're also going to just check if it's the player as well, because we don't want to disable the player, just the AI. So if it's the player, false, reset the AI. So when we reset the race, even if a racer hasn't finished yet because we fail immediately, then she will just basically stop. At that point, you can reset her AI to randomly wander or sit complaining about life, whatever she wants. Well, whatever they want to do. Just in this case, that woman keeps losing this one. So if I... Oh yeah, I need to lose, don't I? Where's he going to go? Oh, he's following me this time. Because he's randomly picking the shortcuts. So you'll see, as he hits that, we definitely need to improve the running part. There we go. And she has stopped too. Fantastic. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. So in the next part, we're going to add all the UI, the sounds. We're going to make it sound all really cool. That is going to be entirely dependent on your game. I'm just going to show you how to plug in the bits I've got for mine. And I've got some animation somewhere of a flag waver, so we'll get that as well. So we can wave the flag and everything, and we'll do 3, 2, 1, go. You know, however we want to handle it. Thank you for sticking with me through all of this, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this racing game is going to look really cool in your game. I will try to include the project files, or at least the racing part of it, in my Patreon if you want to go and grab that. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for watching. My name is Decryption, and I will see you next time.